I see hundreds and hundreds of tomatoes. Do you? Today, I'm going to do an update on the trough I bought. This is a one-piece trough, no walls, nothing to collapse, nothing to fall apart, nothing to put together, which was fabulous. Filled with free soil, and look, hundreds of tomatoes with such little work. Let's get right into this now, because I think when spring comes, everybody's going to want to set one of these things up. Hi, this is Robbie from Southern California, and today I came out and I started working in my garden, the bird garden. And I was working in the trough mainly because let me tell you about the mistakes I did that I will not repeat for next year. So come spring, which is what, in about 6 months, I'm going to set this up different. But in the meantime, I'm going to make use of everything I did wrong in hopes I'll have a really good winter. Let's walk on this side. So let's do or go over the first thing I did wrong. This is a little over 100 gallons, this trough. It's a beautiful size and there's a lot of things you can do with it. I had big plans and I ended up doing something else. But what I did wrong was put 3 tomato plants in. As you can see, that was way too much. Tomato plants get so big, and I understand that sometimes you want to put an extra few in there in case they don't grow. Well, maybe I should have taken out 1 or 2, but I planted purposely 3 tomatoes. They were all cherry type tomatoes, and I planted sun golds, 100s I think on the red ones, the little cherry tomatoes, and then a variety of yellow tomatoes. And I am not sure what happened to that one. The plant's alive, but I don't see any tomatoes on it right now. I see a lot of reds and I saw a few orange ones, which I ate. What I should have done was planted 1, and what I should have done is continued what I was going to do, and I was going to do it in levels and get all kinds of things growing. But life happens, different things went on this year, and I just went with the 3 varieties of tomatoes. As you can see, I did start to stake them. I've got the irrigation tubing up there, but I didn't finish. I should have put it all the way around like I usually do, and it would have held it up. Now that I've stepped away and I'm doing everything else, I've got it going, let's walk over here, all the way to the ground. It is absolutely loaded with tomatoes. So I am getting a lot of tomatoes, but see, it's growing way back here. It's going into my dragon fruit, which I did not trim back yet. And it even Tommy the tomato. We'll get back to Tommy in a minute. But look at that. See, there is, all 3 plants are alive. There's 1, 2, 3. Now each plant has their own, let's see if I can get you in here, flower pot, which is fantastic. That's why they're all alive, because they each have their own water source. So I can water each one of those pots, and even though the bottom is really big and their roots are growing in here, and obviously they're getting a lot of nutrition the way I grow my plants and fill my totes and containers, but the issue is they're all just too big. And so next time we go with 1 or possibly 2 tomato plants and then pick the best one or move it out. And that wouldn't have been hard to do. If I try right now to move one of these out, I'll lose them. I've done it before. You yank them out, you lose half the roots, and being late in the season, they don't always make a good recovery. But I have moved them earlier in the season and they recover fine and continue to grow. So here is my plan right now. I'm going to continue to trim. I'll show you what I'm doing. I'm trimming off all the yellowing leaves because it doesn't need it. I don't think I'm going to trim anything on the bottom, though I'm going to try to see if I can lift it up a little bit with something because it's so loaded. Look at the tomatoes here and there, and you can probably not even see them all. They're all full in there. Going to go through and kind of lift it a little bit. I'll see if I can lift it up more, and the reason I can't just grab it and lift it is these will snap. And once they snap, they won't grow good. So you don't want to snap them. I could trim it. That's another option. And then it will grow more inside. But a lot of times as plants get older, tomato plants, especially the cherries, they tend to grow on the upper growth. Let me explain that to you, because that's something good for you to know. They'll grow new growth on the top, and they'll look beautiful on the top. But the bottom growth, see how they look? They have leaves turning brown, and they go yellow, and sometimes they don't grow anymore later in the season, and so I won't get any tomatoes on the bottom growth, but I will continue, see all through here, as it goes up, and see the flowers, it will continue to get new growth that way. Now, one little note I wanted to also show you that sometimes when a plant is not doing that good, now this one's doing pretty good, but it does have some light yellowing leaves. See from the base, it can come back from the very bottom of the base. So I could cut this down and all this new growth, and there's some on the other side, would take off. So that is another option, that if the plant is struggling that you've got, try cutting it low, but leave some green growth that you see, and then let the plant rejuvenate, especially when you still have time to grow. So I don't prune tomato plants unless I have to, but you can keep that in mind. You absolutely can. I think I'll put some more irrigation tubing around here. I'm going to continue to trim, and I'm taking all these trimmings, and I'll show you what I'm going to do. Here is my dinosaur kale that is really old. The original plant is probably 7 or 8 years old now, but I did a cutting. The original is gone, but I did a cutting on this, and it is growing beautiful. And I think you saw early on, I moved it. So it's in a pot with big holes in a big pot, and it's supported well, it's watered well, and it's doing fantastic. But I am going to build this up a little bit. So I'm going to take all the tomato leaves that I've been picking, and they're going to turn brown soon, and I'm going to load it up in here, continue until I get it really high. Then I'm going to put some wood chips on top. I can grab it from the ground. I could use old leaves. You have grass clippings, you can use that. I'm going to move some walking onions closer to the top. That should do fantastic. And this way I'm composting all the tomato leaves. Don't have to kind of store it in buckets, which I do sometimes. And I'll get growth out of it now because it will break down immediately and the plant will use, yes, tomato leaves. So that's what I'm going to do. So you know what? Let me go finish because I'm getting close to being done. I'm going to trim off a lot more through here, open it up for good airflow, because as the plants age, you start to get issues. You can get spider mite, you can get all kinds of stuff because it's just too bunched up and you don't get really good airflow through the plant. And that's when you start getting, as people call it, diseases or different issues. Especially we're in September now. So with that, you know, it starts to, let's say normally the plant wants to break down and go back to earth and die. Well, I'm going to try to keep it alive. And if I can keep it happy, give good airflow, good water, take care of it, feed it with, I could do it with its own leaves, but I'll probably collect some different types of brassica leaves, throw that in there, make some more compost tea. If we don't have a harsh winter, this plant can continue to grow tomatoes all through the winter. If we get frost and we get too cold, it could die back. But this gets south facing, and so the sun goes across here, and so this plant's going to get sun. And for winter, having sun from morning till almost dusk, you know, from dawn to dusk, it could do quite well. I don't know. I haven't done this before. But I will say I do love the trough, but I want to set it up different in the spring. So I'm going to go clean this, and then we're going to come back and see what it looks like when it's all done. And I got a lot of it off already, and then I'll take care of that too and see how nice and neat and clean this looks, and hope for the best on the ones that are straggling along the bottom. So I think I put enough time into this right now. Let me show you real quick what I did. Most of it is off the ground. I did leave a little bit back here, and I'll decide if I want to trim it, but for now it's not doing any harm. It's growing up against the lemon verbena, so I'm going to leave that. But all this is up. All the big leaves, anything yellowing, anything the plant doesn't need right now, I trimmed off. I actually put it in here, and as you can see, I put my walking onion here. This is just an old pot I had here. See, I loaded the leaves on, put a little bit of soil on. In fact, just picked it up from the ground. Now, that's going to give this plant that I absolutely love more soil and more nutrients. And now I can keep track of the tomato plants I've got. And there they are. I think they're looking really good. It's loaded with tomatoes. I see orange and I see red, but I don't see any yellow. In fact, the plant that's supposed to throw yellow, I saw a couple tomatoes on it that were red. So maybe it was mismarked. I thought I had a yellow one earlier. I don't know. We'll see what happens. But I'm going to do it much different in the spring. But look how much neater it is. So what I did was I used yarn. And the yarn, like I use a lot, wrapped around the tomato stakes. Does really good. And then I also use 1/4-inch irrigation tubing. You know how I love that. I put the wire inside, the rebar wire. I've got videos on that. And then I just simply twisted it around right there. And what's wonderful is I can take that off later and reuse it. So right now it's holding the plants up. It's nice and sturdy. And even if the plants rub on it, it's plastic, it's soft, it doesn't hurt the plants. So it's actually better than yarn sometimes, but I use both because yarn is really quick and easy. The Tulle has kept rodents out. It actually works because I had rodents getting in there. Who knows what they were, but they were getting in and they were eating my tomatoes. So now that stopped. See all the red tomatoes in there? And while it was working, I was eating as well. Look at all the tomatoes. They look like grapes. Look how big the clusters are. Look at all this. Look how big. So I'm really excited about this. I think it looks fantastic. I have one long stake. I'm going to leave it right now. I was going to put the 1/2-inch irrigation tubing around, but it wasn't going to do anything. For this particular setup, it would have just sat there up in the air. So I went with the 1/4-inch wrapped here too, see? So when you put the wire through, the rebar wire, you slip it through, this becomes like a rubber-coated metal wire. And then you can just wrap it on, and it was wrapped there to there, and then another loop there. And now I think it looks nice and neat. Tell me what you think, but it's so cheap. If you're interested, you know, especially when your season comes back for gardening, look up the 1/4-inch irrigation tubing. You can get like 50 feet, is it, for $10? It's so cheap. It could be 100. I'll have to go back and look at it. And then the wire is dirt cheap. That's just like $10 for 300 to 500 feet. I bought it once. I don't know when I'll need to buy any more. So that's basically it. Wanted to show you what I was doing today. Now you can see the trough, and I've got walking onions there, and I've been collecting. Let me see if I can find them. Over here in my pile where I'm working. Look, I collected a bunch of walking onions, and I can get more planted in different pots around here. So I was collecting them off of there. Those are in pots, and those walking onions are in the ground. They just need a little bit of grooming, but I'm going to change some of that. So I didn't want to touch that today. This is what I wanted to work on for the past couple hours. Really beautiful and nice to work under the blue sky, a light breeze, and I'm going to say, oh, about 80 degrees. So with that, have a wonderful day, and don't forget to eat what you grow. Bye-bye. Gosh, those are gorgeous, those tomatoes. They're everywhere, all through there. Cool. Oh, and on Tommy the tomato that grew in the center of the soil there, and we moved it. It grew one big tomato, though it is trying to grow again, and something grabbed it. This is not a small cherry tomato variety. I don't know what it is because it is a volunteer, which means it came up on its very own. But we'll leave it. We'll see what happens. It's a nice, healthy plant. But unfortunately, I'm not going to get a lot of tomatoes off of it this year, but who knows? We'll just let Tommy sit on the pedestal and do its thing and enjoy life.